Rise News analyst Mahmud Jega joins us now for a balanced outlook on the conversation we just had with the APC chairman, Sly Ezokenwa. You were there listening.
Yeah.
Well, the last question I put to him was, is APC going to present a candidate for the election? And he craftily
he dodged. It's a very important question because some small parties do that. You see, given everything that he said, APC is inclining towards the ruling APC. Some of the things he said are debatable. For example, that they are together as progressives and this and that. Progressive politics usually means left-wing, labor, people-oriented and all that. And the economic policies that the APC government has been pursuing in the last 2 years are absolutely right-wing, ending subsidies and things like that. And Professor Soludo himself, who was governor of the central bank in Nigeria, a famous international economist, but a right-wing economist. So it is difficult to make the argument that they are together. Now, this issue about whether APC will field a presidential candidate in 2027 reminds us of what happened in 2003 when the Alliance for Democracy, which that time controlled the 6 southwestern states, refused to field a presidential candidate against the then president Olusegun Obasanjo. It turned out to be a disaster because they lost 5 of their governors. The only one that survived was the governor of Lagos. It looks to me that the game APC is playing now is to say, look, APC and President Tinubu, we will support you for your re-election, but let us keep control of the only. So that's the impression.
But then when people talk like that, let us keep control. Does it that mean that the president can influence what happens in Anambra?
Well, in Nigeria, generally, this issue of incumbency is very potent in politics, both at the local and at the national level. You can see, for example, every local government election that we have had in Nigeria, the state, the party in power in the state won everything, all the charm, and that is because the elections are organized by the state independent electoral commissions, which are controlled by the state governments. So at the federal level, that kind of sweep is less obvious, but state governments always fear the fact that all the security agencies are federal. The military, the police, the DSS, the civil defense, they are all federal agencies. So there is always the fear that if the federal authorities are reckless enough, they can put them all at the service of the candidates of the ruling APC. So you see, even Professor Soludo in Anambra, whose election is coming up in November, despite all the confidence of the APC leaders, they still fear that you never know what can happen.
But should that be the narrative?
Shouldn't be.
How do we change that narrative?
Well, it will require a fundamental reorganization. It's for the same reason that many state governments are calling for a state police. And those who are opposed to the idea of state police are saying, yeah, well, maybe you have a point in the sense that a state police may be more effective in tackling crime. But the danger is that governors may abuse that. And if the governors have state police, probably nobody can defeat them in an election in their state. This is one of the fears that are being expressed. So the federal nature of all the security agencies disturbs governors of opposition parties.
What do you make of the opposition calling, opposition? Okay, first of all, what do you make of the by-elections that were just held across the length and breadth of the country. 12 APC and then the rest just shared. Is it a sign of what is to come?
So, ideally it shouldn't be, because local issues are different from federal issues. Ideally, you know, people can say, okay, in the national election we'll vote this way for this reason, but in the local election we'll vote this way or for that reason. And some states have done that, you know, historically. Lagos and Kano are very good examples, and several other states. But these by-elections that recently took place, okay, there were surprises in some states. For example, I think I saw the Katakata in Zamfara state, one federal constituency in Kaolanamoda, which was won by APC, even though PDP is the ruling party in the state. And but of course, the PDP leaders are saying that it is the federal government that used security agencies, in particular because the Minister of State for Defense is from Zamfara state. He's a former governor of the state. So if you see the allegations that they are making, is that, okay, there was the use of this even military and other agencies, but that otherwise we are on the ground and all that.
The same thing that the opposition in Anambra State is crying about. So what do you make of what he said? Because it seemed to be his word against
their own. Because in Anambra State, there is no evidence that the APC federal government used security or any other agencies to come to the aid of the local chapter of the APC there. And that could be partly because of the maneuver that the Abga leadership in Anambra is doing. You know, this visit that Governor Soludo paid to the president wearing the president's trademark cap.
Saying he's been the president's friend
for 22 years. I'm not making any allegation, but we don't know what they discussed behind the scenes.
No, we don't know. And then, of course, I raised the issue when we were talking. The opposition also said that APCA and the governor even used operatives and INEC to influence the elections in Anambra.
Well, I heard what the chairman was saying, that I think he said the APC gubernatorial candidate grabbed some people, kept them in his house. That's the allegation. Well, since I was not in Anambra State during the election, but we are listening to what all the sides are saying. And sometimes as analysts, by the time we listen to all sides, we may be able to say the truth, maybe closer to this. But as he also said, the Assistant Inspector General of Police, who was posted to Anambra to take charge of security, did say that no security agency other than the normal federal ones should be involved in the election. So if the Anambra State-controlled security service got involved at some stage, whatever explanation he is now giving, then that was
another thing altogether.
That was another thing, because if there was a problem, for example, the APC gubernatorial candidate abducted some people and kept in his house, then report that to the AIG or any other security agency around and see what they will do. Exactly. But instead, if you bring your own security agencies, then, you know, anybody else can bring anything and say this is the reason.
What do you make of the latest statement by the president, former president rather, concerning INEC?
President Jonathan.
Yeah, that for an INEC chairman to be appointed, he has to undergo an independent screening.
That
and then also that the question of registering parties should be taken over INEC.
Okay, as to the first part, let's say we are going back to the report of the Mohammed Uwais Commission, I think 2008 or 9. If I remember right, they recommended that an INEC chairman should be appointed like a Supreme Court justice, you know, independent, the same terms, the same constraints, and by whether it is the National Judicial Council should advertise and interview, because it's really very, very important. like the government is going to face a major challenge this year when the INEC chairman completes his 2 terms. When you appoint another chairman, if it looks to the opposition like he is an all-out partisan fellow, then you have a serious integrity problem, because people will say the next election is rigged even before we come to it. So honestly, I agree entirely with President Jonathan, even though I can see the difficulty of doing that. As to the second part about taking the function or registration of parties to another agency, you know what the APGA national chairman said is also very important, that trying to solve problems by creating more and more agencies is also a problem, because we already have too many agencies, many of them redundant. If it looks like INEC is not handling the job of registration of parties very well, we can reform through law and the regulations. We can reform and even give deadlines. For example, people are complaining now that, okay, you have got 110 applications to register new parties, but it's like you are not in a hurry to register, especially the opposition wants this, their ADC alliance. The rules or even the Electoral Act can specify a time and say at least 2 years before the next election, INEC must act on the applications and register some of the parties. We don't have to create another agency. We can solve that problem through change of laws and laws.
Tinker with the law. Thank you so much, Rise News analyst Mahmud Jega, for your time on Prime Time.